Welcome to Recovery Inspired Hope. I'm so excited today. We've got one of my friends all the way from Nevada coming to share her experience, strength, and hope and her pathway. She has got a great testimony. I know you're going to enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to Jamie Tull on YouTube. And now we're going to bring on Crystal. Crystal, say hello to everybody.
Hello. Hi.
So Crystal is a woman in long-term recovery. She's also a mother and a wife. And all of those things are, have a lot of responsibility to them, each in its own way. Yeah. And so I'm so excited for you to share, Crystal, your experience and for the women that you are going to help that hear this testimony. So first of all, I kind of want to start with just like a little like background of your life.
Okay. Well, I grew up in this small little town and I was pretty sheltered. My parents were pretty strict. And I didn't actually start using or drinking till my late 20s. And around 27, I got diagnosed with bipolar and went to a psychiatrist and on with the meds. So Adderall for ADHD and then hydrocodone for pain. And within, I think, 6 months to a year, I was abusing those. And then I did
so
the
you got legitimate
alcohol.
You got legitimate prescriptions for like legitimate
Yes.
things. And that
Yes.
started, clicked that thing in your brain and it was off from there. Wow.
Yep. And essentially, I think within 6 months, I was like snorting the Adderall, which isn't a normal thing. I should have thought that's just a weird thing to think, hey, let's snort this, it'll work better. And then I would end up running through my script too soon. So I would end up drinking heavily to first get rid of those detox feelings and then just to cope with life without them. It was insane. And I would try to detox at home, but I have a medical degree with nursing. And so I didn't want to lose my degree. I had a license for CNA and MA, and I was afraid if I go in and say I'm addicted to my pills, they'll, stereotypical judgment. So it was just the beginning.
Absolutely. And the nursing board, I know for like, I've done work with the nursing boards and when you get caught on like a drug offense in the nursing world, like that's big stuff. Like they make you take classes that cost a lot of money. They make you do like all these things, and then they'll change your jobs around. So I totally get the, the fear and the stigma of all that. And I think it's really cool that you developed a career though, and everything and a foundation. Now, did you have your children yet or no?
Yeah. So I had my firstborn at 22. I just turned 22. And then 5 years later, I had my second. And I didn't really I did the normal drinking every once in a while, but I wasn't, because of my kids, I didn't have the opportunity and the fear of, alcoholism runs in my family. So I grew up knowing about it and I had that fear implanted in me young. So it just took off with pills, essentially. And I remember at one point thinking, I wish there was a pill I could just take instead of having to drink. And that was like late 20s, and then lo and behold, there it was. So yeah, wow. I had 2 kids and, with college and working, I never really had the opportunity to, thank God, get started earlier, essentially.
Mm-hmm. So you had your kids and then, you have your college degree and you got your nursing, all of this. So you're working this great job, great career, and you are hiding this addiction basically.
Yeah. So when it started, I wasn't working actually. When it really kicked off, I wasn't working anymore. When I had worked, I was a medical assistant for a doctor's office and worked for like three years, I think, there. And then I moved to Las Vegas and I was a stay-at-home mom. And so it was kind of, I think the boredom and just being at home. My youngest was 3 at the time. It just took off there. So yeah, at that time I wasn't even working.
Yeah, I mean, being a
So
stay-at-home mom, people might say like, "Oh, like where's the stress in that?" It's like,
yeah,
being a stay-at-home mom is very stressful.
it's so stressful. It's like, and for me, an alcoholic, my self-centeredness was like, no, I can't do this all day. You
Mm,
know, just being someone's only everything was like my self-centeredness. I couldn't, I mean, at the time I didn't know that. It was like, why do I hate being a mom sometimes? But
right.
in the moment, it's like, now I can look back and say, that's pure self-centeredness. I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to give up anything. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
So, tell me about like your downward spiral, like your worst like moments that brought you to a point to surrender, to do something different.
So there was a few, you know, my first rock bottom obviously wasn't my first. I was living in Las Vegas. I had been attempting to stop these meds for probably 6, 8 months by myself and hide it. My then boyfriend was very private and we don't share our life type of thing with other people. So, and I moved away from all my family and friends. No one else was in Vegas. It's 8 hours from here. So essentially, as I'm trying to control my addiction, as we do, and detox with alcohol, it just started to spiral. And my life with him started to spiral, my life with my kids. And I was trying to also hide it. And that hiding feeling, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with that, but that is, it just rots your brain. For me, it was just the voice of the end. And so one day, he got word of it, that I was abusing my meds, and again, prescribed. So it's not any better, but the fact that he looked at it differently. Just they were a prescription, how could you abuse them type thing. And we ended up deciding to split up. Me and my kids were to move out in a month. Long story short, I had a huge mental anger breakdown. I destroyed our whole house and I drank like 2 whole bottles, all my pills, and ended up calling the cops on myself at like 2 a.m. And CPS came. And thankfully, by the grace of God, they didn't take my kids. They placed them with a friend. And I had to, it was out. The jig was up. I had to call and I was like, I gotta go to rehab, guys. Like, this isn't working. And no one knew anything. They were like dumbfounded that I was just, you know, soccer mom hiding her booze and pills every day. So I went to a 7-day detox, and from there ended up coming home back to Yerington. And like I said, that wasn't my rock bottom. I met a guy there and brought him home with me.
At the detox?
And within, yeah, I met him and married him.
That is amazing. Look, did you ever see, my husband has put this meme up before where it's has like Cinderella with like the little socks with the rubber on the bottom, and it said like, when you meet your Prince Charming in detox.
That was me. That was so me. He was my knight in shining armor. And the great part of it was like, he saw me coming a mile away, like with my $100 yoga pants and I was just ridiculous. I had hidden myself in money and filled the void of life with buying things. And he was a typical rehab hopper, like find someone to cling on to, and wanted to marry me like 3 days later, mind you, right after detox. My prescriptions were filled again. So I went right back to the Adderall, and yeah, it was just nutty. And I ended up bringing him back to Yerington and got a job as a bartender. So within 3 months, I was drinking again. And that was my journey to beginning to try meth. As a bartender at Graveyard, I watched it happening all around me, like, oh, hey, look, I know what they're doing. And of course, it was free and handed to me. And that was a bigger rock bottom. It was dark. Meth was dark. And it was an immediate grab on me, immediately. Just the behaviors, the things I was willing to do, the the lifestyle, like it pulled me down so fast.
Now,
fast.
were you a IV meth user?
No. And
Thank
you know,
God.
that the moment that I was like, I have to get help again, was my brain was like, you could totally be an IV user. No one's going to know. You're trained in stabbing people with a needle. And I went to this thought like, oh my God, this is going to be, and then I thought, well, heroin's probably better because your opiates were your favorite thing. Like, that was the moment I was like, Crystal, this is not okay. It was,
Isn't that crazy?
I was like driving back to work.
Yeah, like the
Go
things
ahead.
that we can tell ourselves, like, or I don't know if is it our thoughts? Is it the enemy trying to plant seeds in us? I don't know, but yeah, those were so when you had that kind of revelation, that thought, what did you do?
So my husband, I say it like that because thank God it wasn't a legal marriage. He was already married. We drove back to Vegas. He was already married, so thank God. That's God's will right there. He's like, all right, you're gonna mess up this life. I'll give you somebody who's already married. We drove to Vegas to go to rehab again together and ended up didn't make it, obviously. We drove, it's again 8 hours. So we get there, we get a lights optional motel down in Fremont area. And within 5 minutes, he comes back with a couple bags of dope. And I think we spent the next 4 days in there. I don't know at this point, you know what I mean? Like, and then I remember we ran out. So I called our old drug dealer, and that made that husband mad because of course it was a guy. And long story short, he got mad. He tried to like bear hug tackle me onto the bed, and I was trying to, like, I got up, tried to throw him over the balcony of like a Motel 6. Security came and they were just like, what are you doing? Why are you here? And I spent, I think, another 4 days walking around Vegas looking for him, like Fremont and downtown area, because he ran off. And at the end of that, I found him at a detox center, and I detoxed and then got out after I think 4 days, started going back to meetings, and then within a week he was using again. So thankfully that time I was able to say, I'm not chasing after you, and got away from him and got sober. So, but the meth thing was like, it's so crazy how it can make your brain just like, your common sense is gone. Like you said, it's the enemy. In my opinion, meth is completely demonic, and it feeds your addiction and it feeds your disease, but it seems so rational in the moment. Like, it's so rational.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So you said you went to meetings. So meetings are your pathway to recovery?
Yes.
So you're a 12-stepper.
I'm a 12-stepper, 100%. Cool. I claim to be an alcoholic. I tried the other program. It just wasn't for me. And I do now, like, I go to the jails once a week. My fiance goes to the jails once a week. We chair meetings. It's the only thing, what, for me, it brought me closer to God. I already knew God, but my version of God was so distorted and self-centered. And I think what, the program has done for me is taught me how to live spiritually and selfless. Because for me, the moment, and don't get me wrong, I have moments of selfishness now, but now I can pinpoint them and be like, that's just self-centeredness. And the key to that is to get out of self-centeredness and go help somebody else. Go find someone who needs something more than you, and God's in that. That is all God. So for me, the program brought me to God, and God brought me to the program. And it's not, for me, the 12 steps is literally a rule book of here's how to get better and here's how to live forever. Like, stay spiritually fit and growing, I'm a 12 step.
Absolutely. And so I love how you said that, because that was my experience too. So I was a 12 step, still work the 12 steps today. And you know, I grew up very Catholic, very religious,
Mm.
had this kind of view of
Yeah.
God that I didn't even believe, like this view of this, you know, lightning bolt throwing, hammer hitting, gavel judge, you know what I mean? It's going to throw me in the brimstone and
Yeah.
fire. And so, but it's like that was what was, you know, shown to me growing up. Like, well, you know, if you don't say, you know, 5 Our Fathers and 10 Hail Marys, you're gonna go, you know,
Yeah.
to hell. And so
Yeah.
yes, the 12 steps like brought me back to God. It got me out of the way to get to know
Absolutely.
this God, to communicate, to say, you know, okay, tell me about yourself. Like, tell me what you want me to do, you know, and
Exactly.
to want to have that relationship. So, how are your, how are your kids, now? Like, how old are they?
My youngest just turned 8 on Thursday, and my oldest will be 13 next month. And I'm very open with them, like just unbelievably open, because the way I grew up, it's kind of like yours. Don't do it. End of story. Don't do it, Crystal. Well, what 16-year-old or 15? And I did dabble as a kid, obviously, but I didn't have any idea. I couldn't fathom what alcoholism or addiction was, other than your grandfathers are and my uncle. What I didn't see it though. At the time that I knew of them, they were already sober. They were in the program for a few decades at that point. And so it was just told to me, don't do it. And with my sons, especially my oldest being 13 now, I'm very open. And I tell them, this is why, because one day someone's going to say, hey, you want this? You want to try that? And you may not ever be able to stop. And it seems so probably to a kid like, yeah, right, you know, but that was me. Like,
Right.
they gave me 3 diagnoses, here's a bunch of pills, and I couldn't stop. You know, it was like, not only could I not stop taking my meds, I started abusing them as like second nature. My brain was like, hey, crush them up and snort them. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who thinks like that, you know? And
Right.
so all of a sudden I'm 28 years old. Let's crush these up. Why? Why would you do that?
Right. Exactly.
Because I'm not
Exactly.
alcoholic.
So
Yeah, I'm very open with them. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I love how you were talking about that you go to the jails and chair meetings. Service is like my like pathway. So being, you know, a mom, a wife, a business owner, and I have, you know, this platform I have on here and social media.
Yes.
You know, it's hard for me to be, you know, when I first started going to meetings five nights a week, right? When you have kids at home and stuff. So I found that like during different seasons of my recovery, different things helped me. And one that's huge for me is service. And so I love how you said that, because it's like when I was 89 days sober, I started speaking in the crisis intervention unit, you know, where people go, suicide attempts, overdoses, things like that. And it was like seeing the light come on in their eyes with me just having 89 days sober. It just like filled my heart and my spirit. And I found purpose finally in all of my pain. So
It's I think the greatest gift is the service work. And you know, I talk about all the time, I do it selfishly, obviously, right? Like if I'm having a day, I'm like, what would my sponsor tell me to do? Get out of self and go help another alcoholic, because it helps me to help them. And it helps us both to, you know, stay sober or be sober. And the greatest gift I've seen is the light. And those women in jail, talk about hopelessness. And like, I personally, by the grace of God, again, thank you, Lord, have never been arrested.
wow.
Almost never even been caught, except the time I was blessed. And then when, you know, when people question God, I'm like, oh, I know there's a God. I never got in trouble. I never got caught. And I should have. I used to drive from Vegas to here back and forth, drinking and drugging, 8-hour drive, but the service work, I don't think I would be where I'm at spiritually if I hadn't started doing it and doing it quickly. My sponsor pushed me to be a speaker within like 6 months, I think. And then I started chairing, and it's unity, service, recovery. It's part of it. And I think the triangle would not be the triangle if we didn't give it back. And
Absolutely.
the greatest thing is to see someone's light come on and know that you can help them, and know that you're not alone. I say it all the time. We're not special. We're not unique. I mean, we're unique in God's image, but in the disease, we're not unique. We are all the same. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. And I thank God that when, that was the biggest thing when I came into, sober living, when I came into recovery and into meetings, I was like, it's not just me. Like, I'm not just, crazy, pathetic, a bad mom, all this stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of people here, and when I found out about, and I know a lot of people like to argue, you know what I mean? But when I started reading the books that talk about the science, the brain science of addiction, I was like, oh, no wonder I couldn't stop using, So, well, thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing all that and for sharing your experience. I can't wait to get this. I'm going to put the whole thing on my YouTube, and then I'm going to put some clips on my Jamie Chell Facebook page so that people can get a little sneak peek of it. You're an amazing speaker, and your kids are like just so blessed to have you. And thank you for being honest with them, because I'm the same way, with my kids. And, my son right now is, not making the greatest choices as a 17-year-old. Right. But because I've been so open and honest with him, I have faith that if things do get a little too far, he knows where to go. He knows what will work because he's seen the proof. And we're not just saying like, no, don't do this. Like, we're saying, and this is why.
And one of the greatest things is my kids go to the meetings with me. Awesome. Any meeting I go to, so they're a part of the AA, the program family. And the way they kind of use it now, like my oldest, I've seen him have an issue and then resort to that kind of thinking as a resolve. And so, or scripture or some, worship music, like he's watching me do it and seeing the change in his mom. So it's not like I say, this is what you should do. I just say, well, tonight's my meeting and let's go get dinner and go to the meeting. That's what we do on certain nights of the week, and so it's become something to them that's a norm. And
I love that.
They listen. I mean, they're in the rooms, they hear other people, and they look at these people now that they've known for almost 2 years, and they can see like, oh, you're doing this now, but you have that story, So it's a gift. It's a gift to just show them. Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm so glad. Okay, well, we're gonna end it here, you guys, and thank you, Crystal, so much. And I'm gonna make sure we get this put up, and you guys, we will see you next time on Recovery Inspired Hope, and you guys have a great evening.